Maharaj Shri Gurudev ki jai. Nitya Vishwa Vishnu Para Shatara Shatashma Chila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Vishwa Vishnu Para Shatara Shatashma Chila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Vishwa Vishnu Para Shatara Shatashma Chila Bhakti Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Vishwa Vishnu Para Ashatara Shatashma Chila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki jai. Nitil Pravishram Vishnupara Shata Shila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Pravishra Shila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitil Pravishra Vaishnav Sarva Bhoma Shita Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namachay Shri Ras Thakur ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अविश्व विराट गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री मुन देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय। गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। Om Jnanatimirandasya. Dandavat pranams Rup Manjari and Raseshwari Mataji and Madhavi Didi. Dandavat pranams. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpataru Kripa Sindhu Bhyaeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravrajantam Anupetam Apetakritam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhinedu Sangsarva Bhuta Hridaya Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shrinvatang Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Vedantasto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam Nashta Prayeshvavadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Kshiptastakama Ditarangamadhe Kripa Maitam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Dandavat Pranams everybody. Dandavat Pranams Indira Mataji and Prajumna Prabhu and whoever is watching on Facebook Live. I'm guessing that might be Pavatarani Mataji, I don't know. Sorry I'm late today. My power was out and it just came back. But let's see, how long is this? Okay, I'm going to read this. This is from the book Bhagavat Pravaha. An allegory that ended attachment. While the Prachetas engaged in austerities, their father Prachina-Bharhi was engrossed in various fruitive sacrifices. Narad Muni went to Prachini-Bharhi and asked him, "What do you desire to achieve by these karmas? Please see in the sky those animals which you have sacrificed without compassion. They are all awaiting your death to pierce your body with their iron horns." Narad then narrated an allegorical story of a mythical character called Purañjana. He narrated that story to King Prachina-Bharhi as follows. Once there is a king called Purañjana, representing the living entity who dwells within a material body. He had a friend named Avigyata, the Supersoul. Purañjana traveled all over the world to find a suitable place to live to fulfill his desires for sense enjoyment. While wandering, he saw a city with 9 gates, a human body that has 9 holes. In that city, Purañjana saw a beautiful woman, Puranjani, material intelligence, accompanied by 10 servants with hundreds of wives, 10 senses with hundreds of desires. She was protected by a 5-hooded snake, the vital life force. Purañjana was attracted to her feminine features and asked about her identity. Puranjani also got attracted to him and replied, "I don't know my name or family. I only know that I am existing alone in this place today. All these men and women accompanying them are my friends, and the snake that always remains awake protects this city even during my sleeping hours. By great fortune, you have come here to the human form. You may live in this city for 100 years. I will arrange everything for your sense enjoyment." Thus Puranjana and Puranjani got married and lived in the city. Puranjana enjoyed with her and remained under her control just like a pet animal. He begot many children and grandchildren who were virtually plunderers of his home, treasury, and so on. His attachment to them was deep-rooted and he was implicated with countless desires. He conducted many animal sacrifices for prosperity and success of his materialistic plans. Okay, so that's where we are. So, but actually, one second. Oh, shoot. I don't want to take too long with this because I already started 7 minutes late. But, oh, God. Okay. I just wanted to go over what verse. Sorry, one second. We are at 26. Okay. So we read about when in the previous chapter, Puranjan hunts in the forest, and he gave up his wife, but he proudly took up his bow and arrow and went to the forest, inspired to hunt. His heart became very hard and merciless. Without consideration, he killed wild animals with his sharp arrows. If a king is too attracted to eating flesh, he may do so, but as scriptural directions for a special. Any learned person who works according to the knowledge of the Vedic scriptures is not contaminated by his activities and their reactions. But one who acts whimsically is influenced by pride and bound by those actions. Thus he falls down by the influence of the gunas, loses his intelligence, and sinks down into samsara.
Merciful people were aggrieved and could not tolerate Purañjana's ghastly killing of so many animals. Purañjana killed many animals like rabbits, boars, buffaloes, wild cows, antelopes, porcupines, all suitable for sacrifice. Thus he became tired. Then Purañjana returns home and appeases his aggrieved wife. This is an example of how the jiva regains his dharmic intelligence. So, I'm not going to read the spiritual significance, I'm just reading the book. But yeah, being hungry and thirsty, he returned home, took bath, ate suitable food, and being refreshed, took rest. He decorated himself with ornaments, sandalwood pulp, and garlands. After this, he remembered his queen. He felt satisfied, joyful, and proud, and his mind was enamored by Cupid. He did not see his beautiful wife. Purañjana saw the household women and asked them, "Are you and your mistress all happy like before, or not? Now the wealth of the house no more attracts me. If there is no mother or wife in the house, what learned man would remain there? Where is she who saves me by giving me good intelligence at every step, when I am drowning in the ocean of danger?" The women said, "We do not know why your dear wife is lying on the ground without bedding." Seeing his queen lying on the ground, appearing like a mendicant, he immediately became bewildered. He pacified her with sweet words filled with regret. Purañjana, being expert in flattery, slowly appeased her. First he touched her 2 feet. Then he embraced her on his lap and spoke as follows: "An unfortunate servant is not punished by his master for his offenses, but you have punished me by your anger. A master's chastisement should be accepted as great mercy by the servant. Only a fool would become angry. Please give up your anger and show your beautiful face. Your sweet words, smiling glances, and blue hair attract me. O hero's wife, I will punish anyone if he has offended you, except for a Brahmin and a Vaishnav." Okay, so that's where we read up to yesterday. And I'm sorry I just don't have time to read what the spiritual significance of all these words are. But if you want, I can send you this PDF so you can read on your own. Okay. Vaktram nate vitilakam malinam viharsham samramba bhimam avirishtam apetaragam pashe stanavapi shucho pahato sujato bimbadharam vikata kumkuma pankaragam. My dear wife, until this day I have never seen your face without tilak decorations, nor have I seen you so morose and without luster or affection, nor have I seen your 2 nice breasts, wet with tears from your eyes, nor have I ever before seen your lips, which are ordinarily as red as the bimbo fruit, without their reddish hue. Purport. Wait, am I in the right chapter? Yeah. Yeah, okay. I was surprised the purport was so, I thought the purport was longer. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Every woman looks beautiful when decorated with tilak and vermilion. A woman generally becomes very attractive when her lips are colored with reddish saffron or vermilion. But when one's consciousness and intelligence are without any brilliant thoughts about Krishna, they become morose and lusterless, so much so that one cannot derive any benefit despite sharp intelligence. Tanme prasiddha surida krita kilvishasya swairam gatasya mrigayam vyasanaturasya kadevaram vashagatam kusumastravega visrasta pongsanam ushati nabhajate krite. Whatever. My dear queen, due to my sinful desires, I went to the forest to hunt without asking you. Therefore, I must admit that I have offended you. Nonetheless, thinking of me as your most intimate subordinate, you should still be very much pleased with me. Factually, I am very much bereaved, but being pierced by the arrow of Cupid, I am feeling lusty. But where there is a beautiful woman, who would give up her lusty husband and refused to unite with him. But where is the beautiful woman who would give up her lusty husband and refuse to unite with him? Purport. Both man and woman desire one another. That is the basic principle of material existence. Women in general always keep themselves beautiful so that they can be attractive to their lusty husbands. When a lusty husband comes before his wife, the wife takes advantage of his aggressive activities and enjoys life. Generally, when a woman is attacked by a man, whether her husband or some other man, she enjoys the attacked, being too lusty. In other words, when one's intelligence is properly utilized, both the intellect and the intelligent person enjoy one another with great satisfaction, as stated in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 7.9.45. Yan maitunadi grihamedi sukam hitucham kanduyanena karayor iva dukkha dukkam. The actual happiness of the karmis is sex life. They work very hard outside the home, and to satiate their hard labor, they come home to enjoy sex life. King Purañjana went to the forest to hunt, and after his hard labor, he returned home to enjoy sex life. If a man lives outside the home and spends a week in the city or somewhere else, at the end of the week, he becomes very anxious to return home and enjoy sex with his wife. This is confirmed in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Yan maitunadi grihamedi sukam hitucham. Karmis work very hard simply to enjoy sex. Modern human society has improved the materialistic way of life simply by inducing unrestricted sex life in many different ways. This is most appropriately visible in the Western world. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 26th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled King Purañjana Goes to the Forest to Hunt, and his queen becomes angry. The queen represents intelligence, material intelligence. Okay, now beginning chapter 27. Attack by Chandavega on the city of King Purañjana. The character of Kalankanya. Chapter 27. Now let me just make sure the internet's okay. Looks like it. Manjay forgot about Avigya to talk about the silent observant bird, super soul. Okay. Hey. Okay. Naraduvacha itam puranjanam sadrag vashamani avibramai puranjani maharaja reme ramayati patim. The great sage Narad continued, "My dear king, after bewildering her husband in different ways and bringing him under her control, the wife of King Purañjana gave him all satisfaction and enjoyed sex life with him." Purport. After hunting in the forest, King Purañjana returned home, and after refreshing himself by taking a bath and eating nice food, he searched for his wife. When he saw her lying down on the ground without a bed, as if neglected, and devoid of any proper dress, he became very much aggrieved. He then became attracted to her and began to enjoy her company. A living entity is similarly engaged in the material world in sinful activities. These sinful activities may be compared to King Purañjana's hunting in the forest. His sinful life can be counteracted by various processes of religion, such as yajna, vrat, and dan, that is, the performance of sacrifices, taking a vow for some religious ritual, and the giving of charity. In this way, one may become free from the reactions of sinful life and at the same time awaken his original Krishna consciousness. By coming home, taking his bath, eating nice foodstuffs, getting refreshed, and searching out his wife, King Purañjana came to his good consciousness in his family life. In other words, a systematic family life as enjoined in the Vedas is better than an irresponsible sinful life. If a husband and wife combine together in Krishna consciousness and live together peacefully, that is very nice. However, if a husband becomes too much attracted by his wife and forgets his duty in life, the implications of materialistic life will again resume. Srila Rupa Goswami has therefore recommended Anasaktasya Vishayan, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-255. Without being attached by sex, the husband and wife may live together for the advancement of spiritual life. The husband should engage in devotional service, and the wife should be faithful and religious according to the Vedic injunctions. Such a combination is very good. However, if the husband becomes too attracted to the wife due to sex, the position becomes very dangerous. Women in general are very much sexually inclined. Indeed, it is said that a woman's sex desire is 9 times stronger than a man's. It is therefore a man's duty to keep a woman under his control by satisfying her, giving her ornaments, nice food, and clothes, and engaging her in religious activities. Of course, a woman should have a few children and in this way not be disturbing to the man. Unfortunately, if the man becomes attracted to the woman simply for sex enjoyment, then family life becomes abominable. The great politician Chanakya Pandit has said, Bharya Rupavati Shatru, a beautiful wife is an enemy. Of course, every woman in the eyes of her husband is very beautiful. Others may see her as not very beautiful, but the husband, being very much attracted to her, sees her always as very beautiful. If the husband sees the wife as very beautiful, it is to be assumed that he is too much attracted to her. This attraction is the attraction of sex. The whole world is captivated by the 2 modes of material nature, Rajagun and Tamagun, passion and ignorance. Generally, women are very much passionate and are less intelligent. Therefore, somehow or other, a man should not be under the control of their passion and ignorance. By performing bhakti yoga, or devotional service, a man can be raised to the platform of goodness. If a husband situated in the mode of goodness can control his wife who is in passion and ignorance, the woman is benefited. Forgetting her natural inclination for passion and ignorance, the woman becomes obedient and faithful to her husband, who is situated in goodness. Such a life becomes very welcome. The intelligence of the man and woman may then work very nicely together, and they can make a progressive march towards spiritual realization. Otherwise, the husband, coming under the control of the wife, sacrifices his quality of goodness and becomes subservient to the qualities of passion and ignorance. In this way, the whole situation becomes polluted. The conclusion is that a household life is better than a sinful life devoid of responsibility. But if in the household life the husband becomes subordinate to the wife, involvement in materialistic life again becomes prominent. In this way, a man's material bondage becomes enhanced. Because of this, according to the Vedic system, after a certain age, a man is recommended to abandon his family life for the stages of vanaprastha and sannyas. Sarajan mahishim rajan susnatam ruchirananam kritasvastayanam triptam kritananad. God, I don't know why I'm having such a hard time reading today. Abhyanandar upagatam. The queen took her bath and dressed herself nicely with all auspicious garments and ornaments. After taking food and becoming completely satisfied, she returned to the king. Upon seeing her beautifully decorated, attractive face, the king welcomed her with all devotion. Purport. A woman is generally accustomed to dress herself nicely with fine garments and decorative ornaments. She may even sometimes wear flowers in her hair. Women especially dress themselves up in the evening because the husband comes home in the evening after working hard all day. It is the duty of the wife to dress herself up nicely so that when her husband returns home, he becomes attracted by her dress and cleanliness, and thus becomes satisfied. In other words, the wife is the inspiration of all good intelligence. Upon seeing one's wife dressed nicely, one can think very soberly about family business. When a person is too anxious about family affairs, he cannot discharge his family duties nicely. A wife is therefore supposed to be an inspiration and should keep the husband's intelligence in good order so that they can combinedly prosecute the affairs of family life without impediment. There's so many contradictory things. I always get confused what Srila Prabhupada's trying to express. But anyways, hopefully in time I'll understand. Tayopagura parirabdha kandaro rahonu mantrar apakrishta chetana nakala ramho bubude duratyayang divani sheti pramada parigraha. Queen Purañjani embraced the king, and the king also responded by embracing her shoulders. In this way, in a solitary place, they enjoyed joking words. Thus King Purañjan became very much captivated by his beautiful wife and deviated from his good sense. He forgot that the passing of days and nights meant that his span of life was being reduced without profit. Purport. The word pramada in this verse is very significant. A beautiful wife is certainly enlivening to her husband, but at the same time is the cause of degradation. The word pramada means enlivening as well as maddening. Generally, a householder does not take the passing of days and nights very seriously. A person in ignorance takes it as the usual course that days come, and after the days, the nights come. This is the law of material nature. But a man in ignorance does not know that when the sun rises early in the morning, it begins to take away the balance of his life. Thus, day after day, the span of one's life is reduced, and forgetting the duty of human life, the foolish man simply remains in the company of his wife and enjoys her in a secluded place. Such a condition is called a prakrishta chetana, or degraded consciousness. Human consciousness should be used for elevation to Krishna consciousness. But when a person is too much attracted to his wife and family affairs, he does not take Krishna consciousness very seriously. He thus becomes degraded, not knowing that he cannot buy back even a second of his life in return for millions of dollars. The greatest loss in life is passing time without understanding Krishna. Every moment of our lives should be utilized properly, and the proper use of life is to increase devotional service to the Lord. Without devotional service to the Lord, the activities of life become simply a waste of time. Shama eva hi kevalam. Simply by becoming dutiful, we do not make any profit in life, as confirmed in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1.2.8. Dharma svanushtita pungsam vishvaksena katasuya notpadayir yadiratim shama eva hi kevalam. If, after performing one's occupational duty very perfectly, one does not make progress in Krishna consciousness, it should be understood that he has simply wasted his time in valueless labor. Shayana unadamado mahamana maharhakal talpe mahishi bujopadi tameva viro manute param yatas tamo bhibhuto nanijam param chayat. In this way, increasingly overwhelmed by illusion, King Purañjan, although advanced in consciousness, remains always lying down with his head on the pillow of his wife's arms. In this way, he considered women to be his ultimate life and soul. Being thus overwhelmed by the mode of ignorance, he could not understand the meaning of self-realization of his self. He could not understand the meaning of self-realization, of his self, or of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Human life is meant for self-realization. First of all, one has to realize his own self, which is described in this verse as nijam. Then he has to understand or realize the Supersoul, or Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, when one becomes too much materially attached, he takes a woman to be everything. This is the basic principle of material attachment. In such a condition, one cannot realize his own self or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 5.5.2, it is therefore said, Mahat sevam dwaram ahor vimuktes tamo dwaram yoshitam sangi sangam. If one associates with Mahatmas or devotees, his path of liberation is opened. But if one becomes too much attached to women, or to persons who are also attached to women, that is, attached to women directly or indirectly, he opens the Tamo Dwaram, the door to the darkest region of hellish life. King Purañjana was a great soul, highly intellectual and possessed of advanced consciousness. But due to his being too much addicted to women, his whole consciousness was covered. In the modern age, the consciousness of people is too much covered by wine, women, and flesh. Consequently, people are completely unable to make any progress in self-realization. The first step of self-realization is to know oneself as spirit soul apart from the body. On the second stage of self-realization, one comes to know that every soul, every individual living entity, is part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15.7. Mamai vangsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana mana shashta nindriyani prakriti stani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world, are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. All living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Unfortunately, in this present civilization, both men and women are allowed to be attracted to one another from the very beginning of life, and because of this, they are completely unable to come to the platform of self-realization. They do not know that without self-realization, they suffer the greatest loss in the human form of life. Thinking of a woman always within one's heart is tantamount to lying down with a woman on one's valuable bedstead. The heart is the bedstead, and it is the most valuable bedstead. When a man thinks of women and money, he lies down and rests on the arms of his beloved woman or wife. In this way, he overindulges in sex life, and thus becomes unfit for self-realization. Tayavam ramamanasya kama kashmala chetasa kshanardam iva rajendra vyatikrantam navam vaya. My dear King Prachinabarhishat, in this way, King Purañjana, with his heart full of lust and sinful reactions, began to enjoy sex with his wife, and in this way his new life and youth expired in half a moment. Purport. Srila Govindadas Thakur has sung, E dana jovana putra parijana ite kiyache parati tire kamala dala jala jivana tala mala pajahu hari pada nitire. In this verse, Srila Govindadas actually says that there is no bliss in the enjoyment of youthful life. In youth, a person becomes very lusty to enjoy all kinds of sense objects. The sense objects are form, taste, smell, touch, and sound. The modern scientific method, or advancement of scientific civilization, encourages the enjoyment of these five senses. The younger generation is very pleased to see a beautiful form, to hear radio messages of material news and sense-gratificatory songs, to smell scents, nice flowers, and to touch the soft body or breasts of a young woman and gradually touch the sense organs. All is also very pleasing to the animals. Therefore, in human society, there are restrictions in the enjoyment of the five sense objects. If one does not follow, he becomes exactly like an animal. Thus, in this verse, it is specifically stated, Kama Kashmala Chetasa. The consciousness of King Purañjana was polluted by lusty desires and sinful activities. In the previous verse, it is stated that Purañjana, although advanced in consciousness, laid down on a very soft bed with his wife. This indicates that he indulged too much in sex. The words Navam Vaya are also significant in this verse. They indicate the period of youth, from age 16 to 30. These 13 or 15 years of life are years in which one can very strongly enjoy the senses. When one comes to this age, he thinks that life will go on and that he'll simply continue enjoying his senses. But time and tide wait for no man. The span of youth expires very quickly. One who wastes his life simply by committing sinful activities in youth immediately becomes disappointed and disillusioned when the brief period of youth is over. The material enjoyments of youth are especially pleasing to a person who has no spiritual training. If one is trained only according to the bodily conception of life, he simply leads a disappointed life, because bodily sense enjoyment finishes within 40 years or so. After 40 years, one simply leads a disillusioned life, because he has no spiritual knowledge. For such a person, the expiration of youth occurs in half a moment. Thus King Purañjana's pleasure, which he took in lying down with his wife, expired very quickly. Kama Kashmala Chetasa also indicates that unrestricted sense enjoyment is not allowed in the human form of life by the laws of nature. If one enjoys his senses unrestrictedly, he leads a sinful life. The animals do not violate the laws of nature. For example, the sex impulse in animals is very strong during certain months of the year. The lion is very powerful. He is a flesh eater and is very strong, but he enjoys sex only once in a year. Similarly, according to religious injunctions, a man is restricted to enjoy sex life only once in a month, after the menstrual period of the wife, and if the wife is pregnant, he is not allowed sex life at all. That is the law for human beings. A man is allowed to keep more than one wife because he cannot enjoy sex when the wife is pregnant. If he wants to enjoy sex at such a time, he may go to another wife who is not pregnant. These are the laws mentioned in the Manu Samhita and other scriptures. These laws and scriptures are meant for human beings. As such, if one violates these laws, he becomes sinful. The conclusion is that unrestricted sense enjoyment means sinful activities. Illicit sex is sex that violates the laws given in the scriptures. When one violates the law of the scriptures, or the Vedas, he commits sinful activities. One who is engaged in sinful activities cannot change his consciousness. Our real function is to change our consciousness from Kashmala, sinful consciousness, to Krishna, the Supreme Pure. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. Krishna is the Supreme Pure, and if we change our consciousness from material enjoyments to Krishna, we become purified. This is the process recommended by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the process of Cheto Darpana Marjanam, cleansing the mirror of the heart. Tasyam ajanayat putran Puranjanyam Puranjana Shatanekadasha virad Ayushordam atatyagat. The great sage Narad then addressed King Prachinabadhishat. O one whose lifespan is great, Virat. In this way, King Puranjana begot 1,100 sons within the womb of his wife, Puranjani. However, in this business, he passed away half of his lifespan. Purport. In this verse, there are several significant words, the first of which are Ekadasha Shatani. Puranjana had begotten 1,100 sons within the womb of his wife, and thus passed away half of his life. Actually, every man follows a similar process. If one lives for 100 years at the utmost, in his family life he simply begets children up to the age of 50. Unfortunately, at the present moment, people do not live even 100 years. Nonetheless, they beget children up to the age of 60. Another point is that formerly, people used to beget 100 to 200 sons and daughters. What? That's a lot. As will be evident from the next verse, King Purañjana not only begot 1,100 sons, but also 100 daughters. At the present moment, no one can produce such huge quantities of children. Instead, mankind is very busy checking to increase the population by contraceptive methods. We do not find in Vedic literatures that they ever used contraceptive methods, although they were begetting hundreds of children. I don't even understand what the word contraceptive means. Oh, God, and my dictionary is not coming up. Anyways, I don't really. Checking the population by contraceptive method is another sinful activity. But in this age of Kali, people have become so sinful that they do not care for the resultant reactions of their sinful lives. King Purañjana lay down with his wife, Purañjani, and begot a large number of children, and there is no mention in these verses that he used contraceptive methods. According to the Vedic scriptures, the contraceptive method should be restraint in sex life. It is not that one should indulge in unrestricted sex life and avoid children by using some method to check pregnancy. If a man is in good consciousness, he consults with his religious wife, and as a result of this consultation, with intelligence, one advances in his ability to estimate the value of life. In other words, if one is fortunate enough to have a good, conscientious wife, he can decide by mutual consultation that human life is meant for advancing in Krishna consciousness and not for begetting a large number of children. Children are called parinam, or byproducts. And when one consults his good intelligence, he can see that his byproducts should be the expansion of his Krishna consciousness. Tu hitrir dashatara shatam pitri matri yashaskari shilodarya gunopeta Purañjana Prajapate. O Prajapati, King Prachinabarhishat. In this way, King Purañjana also begot 110 daughters. All of these were equally glorified, like the father and mother. Their behavior was gentle, and they possessed magnanimity and other good qualities. Children begotten under the rules and regulations of the scriptures generally become as good as the father and mother. But children born illegitimately mainly become Varna Sankar. The Varna Sankar population is irresponsible to the family, community, and even to themselves. Formerly, the Varna Sankar population was checked by the observation of reformatory method called Garbhadhan Sanskar, a child-begetting religious ceremony. In this verse, we find that although King Purañjana had begotten so many children, they were not Varna Sankar. All of them were good, well-behaved children, and they had good qualities like their father and mother. Even though we may produce many good children, our desire for sex that is beyond the prescribed method is to be considered sinful. Too much enjoyment of any of the senses, not only sex, results in sinful activities. Therefore, one has to become a Swami or Goswami at the end of his life. One may beget children up to the age of 50, but after 50, one must stop begetting children and should accept the Vanaprastha order. In this way, he must leave home and then become a sannyasi. A sannyasi's title is Swami or Goswami, which means that he completely refrains from sense enjoyment. One should not accept the sannyas order whimsically. He must be fully confident that he can restrain his desires for sense gratification. King Purañjana's family life was, of course, very happy. As mentioned in these verses, he begot 1,100 sons and 110 daughters. Everyone desires to have more sons than daughters, and since the number of daughters was less than the number of sons, it appears that King Purañjana's family life was very comfortable and pleasing. Sapanchalapati putran pitri vangsha vivardhanan Dharai samyojayam asa duhitri sadrishar varai. After this, King Purañjana, the king of the Panchal country, in order to increase the descendants of his paternal family, married his sons with qualified wives and married his daughters with qualified husbands. Purport. According to the Vedic system, everyone should marry. One has to accept a wife because a wife will produce children, and the children in their turn will offer foodstuffs and funeral ceremonies so that the forefathers, wherever they may live, will be made happy. The offering of oblations in the name of Lord Vishnu is called Pindodaka, and it is necessary that the descendants of a family offer Pinda to the forefathers. Not only was Purañjana, the king of Panchala, satisfied with his own sex life, but he arranged for the sex life of his 1,100 sons and 110 daughters. In this way, one can elevate an aristocratic family to the platform of a dynasty. It is significant in this verse that Purañjana got both sons and daughters married. It is the duty of a father and mother to arrange for the marriage of their sons and daughters. That is the obligation in Vedic society. Sons and daughters should not be allowed freedom to intermingle with the opposite sex unless they are married. This Vedic social organization is very good in that it stops the promulgation of illicit sex life, or Varna Sankar, which appears under different names in this present day. Unfortunately, in this age, although the father and mother are anxious to get their children married, the children refuse to get married by the arrangement of their parents. Consequently, the number of Varna Sankar has increased throughout the world under different names. Putranam cha bhavam putra ekaikasya shatam yarvar Purañjano vangsha panchaleshu samedita. Of these many sons, each produced many hundreds and hundreds of grandsons. In this way, the whole city of Panchal became overcrowded by these sons and grandsons of King Purañjana. What verse are we reading up to? It's here. Oops. We're reading, okay, this is the last verse. No, it's not. Almost the last verse. Okay. Purport. We must remember that Purañjana is a living entity, and the city Panchal is the body. The body is the field of activity for the living entity, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Kshetra Kshetragya. There are two constituents. One is the living entity, Kshetragya, and the other is the body of the living entity, the Kshetra. Any living entity can know that he is covered by body if he contemplates the body a little bit. Just with a little contemplation, he can come to understand that the body is his possession. One can understand this by practical experience and by the authority of the Shastras. Bhagavad Gita 2.13, it is said, Dehi nosmin yatha dehe. The proprietor of the body, the soul, is within the body. The body is taken as the Panchala Desh, or the field of activities wherein the living entity can enjoy the senses in relationship to the 5 sense objects, namely Gandha, Rasa, Rupa, Sparsha, and Shabda. That is, sense objects made out of earth, water, fire, air, and sky. Within this material world, covered by the material body of subtle and gross matter, every living entity creates actions and reactions, which are herein known allegorically as sons and grandsons. There are 2 kinds of actions and reactions, namely pious and impious. In this way, our material existence becomes coded by different actions and reactions. In this regard, Srila Narottam Das Thakur states, Karma kanda jnana kanda kevala vishera banda amrita boliya jeva khai nana joni sada fire kadarya bakshana kore tara janma adha pate jai. Tara janma adha pate jai. Fruitive activities and mental speculation are simply cups of poison. Whoever drinks of them, thinking them to be nectar, must struggle very hard life after life, in different types of bodies. Such persons eat Such a person eats all kinds of nonsense and becomes condemned by his activities of so-called sense enjoyment. Thus the field of action and reactions by one's descendants are increased. Thus the field of action and reactions by which one's descendants are increased begins with sex life. Purañjana increased his whole family by begetting sons, who in their turn begot grandsons. Thus the living entity, being inclined towards sexual gratification, becomes involved in many hundreds and thousands of actions and reactions. In this way, he remains within the material world simply for the purpose of sense gratification and transmigrates from one body to another. His process of reproducing so many sons and grandsons results in so-called societies, nations, communities, and so on. All these communities, societies, dynasties, and nations simply expand from sex life. As stated by Prahlad Maharaj, Yan Maitunadi Grihamedi Sukam Hitucham, Bhagavatam 7.945. A Grihamedi is one who wants to remain within this material existence. This means that he wants to remain within this body. He wants to remain within this body or society and enjoy friendship, love, and community. His only enjoyment is increasing the number of sex enjoyers. He enjoys sex and produces children, who in their turn marry and produce grandchildren. The grandchildren also marry and in their turn produce great-grandchildren, and this way the entire earth becomes overpopulated. And then suddenly, there are reactions provoked by material nature in the form of war, famine, pestilence, and earthquakes, etc. Thus the entire population is again extinguished simply to be recreated. This process is explained in Bhagavad Gita 8.19 as repeated creation and annihilation, bhutva bhutva praliyate. Due to a lack of Krishna consciousness, all this creation and annihilation is going on under the name of human civilization. This cycle continues due to a man's lack of knowledge of the soul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is 7:59. Oh my God, there's 1 minute. How long is this purport? Can we just finish this? The reason why we're late today is because I had to read some of yesterday's purport as well, and also my power. So, anyways, I think we'll just be like 3 minutes over time. Teshu tariktahareshu griha koshanujjivishu nirudena mamatvena vishayeshvanvabhadyata. These sons and grandsons were virtually plunderers of King Purañjana's riches, including his home, treasury, servants, secretaries, and all other paraphernalia. Purañjana's attachment for these things was very deep-rooted. Purport. In this verse, the word rikta hareshu, meaning plunderers of wealth, is very significant. One's sons, grandsons, and descendants are ultimately plunderers of one's accumulated wealth. There are many celebrated businessmen and industrialists who produce great wealth and are highly praised by the public, but all their money is ultimately plundered by their sons and grandsons. In India, we have actually seen one industrialist who, like King Purañjana, was very much sexually inclined and had 6 wives. Each of these wives had a separate establishment that necessitated the expenditure of several thousands of rupees. When I was engaged in talking with him, I saw that he was very busy trying to secure money so that all his sons and daughters would get at least 500,000 rupees each. Such industrialists, businessmen, or karmis are called mudas in the Shastras, fools. They work very hard, accumulate money, and are satisfied to see that this money is plundered by their sons and grandsons. Such people do not want to return their wealth to its actual owner. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 5.29, Bhoktaram Yagyatapasan Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. The real proprietor of all wealth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the actual enjoyer. So-called earners of money are those who simply know tricks by which they can take away God's money under the guise of business and industry. After accumulating this money, they enjoy seeing it plundered by their sons and grandsons. This is the materialistic way of life. In materialistic life, one is encaged within the body and deluded by false egoism. Thus one thinks, I am this body, I am a human being, I am an American, I am Indian. This bodily conception is due to false ego. Being deluded by false ego, one identifies himself with a certain family, nation, or community. In this way, one's attachment for the material world grows deeper and deeper. Thus, it becomes very difficult for the living entity to extricate himself from this entanglement. Such people are graphically described in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verses 13 to 15, in this way. Idam adyamaya labdam imam prapse manoratam idam asti idam apime bhavishyati punardhanam aso maya hata shatrur hanishye cha paranapi ishvaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balavam sukhi adyo bijanavam asmi konyosti sadrisho maya yakshe dasyami modishya Ityagana vimohita. The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemy will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity, and I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. In this way, people engage in various laborious activities, and their attachment for body, home, family, nation, and community becomes more and more deep-rooted. All right, so tomorrow we will read Chandavega attacks Purañjana city, and then the story of Kalankanya and the daughter of Chandavega. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharika Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Vihari Ju ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmar Shrila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shrila Gurudev ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmar Shrila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmar Shrila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shrila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmar Shrila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmar Shrila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Mahabhagavat Shrila Gokshudas Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Shrila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shrila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhattadash Raghunath Shad Gosai Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki Jai. Namachay Shri Hairas Thakur ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय. श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जाय. सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जाय. श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जाय. श्री मुन देवी गंगा देवी की जाय. श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जाय. श्री भक्ति देवी की जाय. श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जाय. श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जाय. श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जाय. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जाय. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavascha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyai Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams, everybody. Rup Manjari, Seshwari Mataji, Indira Mataji, Pradyumna Prabhu and his mother, Mantra Murthy. Dandavat pranams, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Radhe. See you all. Oh, today, this evening, I am, if there's power, I mean, last night there was a big storm and there wasn't power all night. But if there's power and I have a good enough connection, then I'm going to be doing a kirtan class at 8 p.m. India time. We're going to go over the song Gurudev Kripa Buntu Diya, if anybody wants to join that. Hari Bol.